Hi Flosstube, my name is Andrea, the Stitchy Bookworm, and today is Friday, April 17th. And as it turns out, I started my Flosstube channel 1 year ago today. So I want to start off by saying thank you to everyone. I appreciate all the comments and the kind words and just the encouragement I've got throughout these 4 episodes I've done over the past year. And it's been a bit since my last video, so I feel a little out of practice, even though I don't think I even really got into practice because I only did 4. But it's good to be back. I feel like a good amount of stuff to share today. So since it's been a bit since my last video, I thought I would share kind of what's been going on in my life since then. First thing is that I graduated, and I have my master's degree now. So, a little picture of me from graduation. My program was online entirely, and that was like the first time I've ever been on campus. So it was fun times, and I got to like kind of meet other people who were in my program and chat with them. It was pretty great, but as graduations goes, like kind of boring, but I'm happy I did it. And I finished up an internship at an university archive. And what I've been doing was kind of like behind the scenes, so a lot of the stuff was like, I would process collections, which means kind of like make sure the housing is like adequate, and then like entering the information into the computer. And once my internship was over, I was able to stay on, and after I graduated, I was able to stay on as a student employee until the end of February, which was great because I got more experience. And but they kind of like, I was doing kind of different levels of work after that point, but on the like, once I was like just a student employee, I didn't do full on writing finding aids for a bit. But on my very last day, they're like, we want to give you something fun. So like they had me process 2 photo albums and write full finding aids for them. And I'm like, I haven't done this in like weeks. So I was like, yeah. So it was like a little overwhelming, but it was fun. And one of the coolest things that I got to do when I was an intern is like a lot of the stuff I was like working on was always really cool, but it's like I like worked with zine collections like for like Riot Girl, like which is like a punk movement from the 90s, and I like worked with a collection of like photographs from like old Hollywood from like the 20s, and that was awesome. But the coolest thing I got to do was I got to go to a castle. Like I got to accompany a curator, and then one of the accessioning managers in like the department where I was working. We drove like an hour and a half out away, like into like the middle of nowhere, Ohio, to this castle, and picked up like their records. And first of all, I didn't really need to be there. Like I just like put a couple boxes in the car, but I think the coolest thing I learned was like just like I got to witness like the interaction between a curator and the donor, and kind of what the collection meant to her. Because like this was like a kind of old castle in Ohio. It's like a little thing, but they were actually auctioning it off not long after we were there, because they just could not maintain like the upkeep of everything, because there's like raccoons living in the ceilings. But like we got to tour the castle, and it was like the coolest thing ever. Like it usually was open to tours and everything. I think the new owners are gonna kind of maintain it, like keep it public. But it was just like kind of like, it was amazing, and I was like geeking out the entire time. So that was like experiences like that, like that's like the really cool side of like archiving is like, it's really cool, but it's like that's like goals right there, to be able to like, I don't know, like work with in a castle. So I think it made me kind of think it would be fun to one day like maybe work for like a historical building and like maintaining that stuff. But yeah, so that was an incredible experience, and I probably won't ever forget that. But yeah, then after yeah, so the internship was like overall like an absolutely incredible experience, and I am very happy that I got to work there. I was kind of bittersweet when I had to leave though, but it's all good. It was a great experience. And then, like, I remember when I first did my first Flosstube video, I talked about, like, how I wanted to do kind of rare books and special collections, which, like, that's still the case. And I remember when I first started my program, like, when you're taking kind of introductory classes where you're learning about all the different career paths that you could go, I remember writing in a reflection, I'm not interested in archives at all. It's like I kind of equated it with, like, just government records, which that is a factor of it, like, facet of it. And then, like, but, like, on my final portfolio assignment, like, I put, it was archives and special collections that I put on my thing, on my my title. So it's just, archives are a lot cooler than I originally thought. So it's all about keeping an open mind. So that's kind of the direction I'm going. But I still am thoroughly interested in rare books. Like, even, like, in the office where I was working, like, there'd be days where it's like, I'd just be, like, entering data into the computer, listening to a podcast, and I look over and there's, like, rare manuscript pages, like, just sitting on a desk. Or, like, there's one day when there was, like, clown shoes, like, they didn't look like clown shoes, they were just, like, looked like, they were, like, black shoes that were, like, this big. So it's just, like, seeing the most random stuff, and it was so exciting. So, yeah, I forgot to put this in the intro before we get started on all my projects I've been working on, is that this is a channel for cross-stitch, and I talk about books at the end. So if that's not your cup of tea, then you don't have to watch. So let's get started. We're going to start talking about whips first. Oh wait, I should probably mention, in case you couldn't notice, there's a new backdrop right now. I'm in a different room of my house, and I recently fulfilled a dream of mine to have pretty much a wall of bookshelves. Like, I have, like, these two right here, and it's, like, I still have plenty of room on here for, like, more books that I could add. But also right next to me, I'm going to show it off because I can. It's one of my favorite bookcases I have. It is a coffin. I found it at, like, a garage sale, like, years ago, like, several years ago, and it's my favorite thing ever. I think it used to be, like, a wine display, because, like, there's, like, a winery label on the side, but it has kind of cool, kind of, like, fake, it looks like a cushion painted on the inside, but it's where I keep all of my spooky books, so I'm obsessed with that. So, let's come back here. Okay, anywho, back to what we were talking about. So we're gonna talk about whips right now. Towards the end of, like, me working on my program, I kind of didn't stitch as much as I would have liked, because I was just, like, distracted and kind of overwhelmed with, like, finishing up my master's program. So, but I have been stitching quite a bit lately. So the first whip, I started this in, like, October as kind of like a spooky start, is Jack's Bash by Plum Street Samplers. So there's that. And then this is what I have so far. It's not a lot. And it is stitched on 32 count linen from a Color and Cotton Halloween box. Definitely, I'm obsessed with this fabric. And I actually was considering stitching all the people without faces to kind of make it more ghosty, but I could always last minute decide to add their faces back in if I decide that's not how I want to do it. So, but I'm, like, obsessed with this project, so I definitely need to get back to it. It's still have a long way to go. And then next up is one I started recently, just kind of as, like, as a need for, like, this whole quarantine situation. I'm like, I needed to stitch something small and quickly, just, like, to give me the satisfaction of, like, finishing something, because I've been working on a lot of big projects recently. It's the Mill Hill Chickadee, and not that far in it at all, but this will be if I, like, started working on it more, I definitely could finish that quickly, but I got distracted with other things, which you will see shortly. Next up is Okay, it's Spooked by Charting Creations, artwork by Bonnie White. And I feel like I actually got a page finish with this one. Let me see if I can maneuver this. So, for the longest time, I just had a few blocks to do right there, and like I could have like gotten it done in no time, but like it just sat for like months before I finished it. And then I'm nearing the bottom, like I have like 2 more pages down here, and I decided to just kind of since the very last page is like a portion of a page, I'm just kind of carrying it all the way down so I can kind of end the threads once I get there, which is exciting because this whole bottom part is like covered with like pumpkins. But I need to get back to it because I have a lot more work to go. But it's definitely a lot really satisfying to work on, so yes. It's like chaos around here right now as I get used to this like new setup. So, okay. Because Julie, Kansas City girl in a Colorado world, she's good at pressuring me to do projects. So, especially stitch-alongs. This next one is Callaloo Brightburn's Familiar Sal by Ingleside Imaginarium. And here's what we have so far. It is on 28 count River Rock from Color and Cotton. And I am behind on this, which I kept saying, I'm like, I'm not going to get behind on this, but I did. So I still have the March and April one to do, which is the crow and like there's a frog. But I really love it. Like I love just like how it's limited color palette. So I'm really excited to see what this looks like once it's all complete. But it's like, it's not a lot of stitching, so it's like once I like get at it, like I could finish a month pretty quickly. But it is detailed enough to kind of really keep my interest. Okay, and then next up is another Julie peer pressure Sal, but it's all good because we like a lot of the same things. This is the Chopping Mall Sal by the Witchy Stitcher, and it is stitched on 28 count Haunted Lugana from Color and Cotton. And this is all I have right now. And like I don't have a picture of like what it's gonna look like right now, but it's like a shopping mall with like each store has like tons of people, like characters from like famous horror movies. Like this one right now is gonna be Chucky, like the Bride of Chucky, like it's a bridal store. And something I love about, I'm so excited about working on this is I'm using Etoile for the first time, DMC Etoile, and all the blood splatters is in DMC Etoile. So it's like, you can't probably see it, but it's shimmery. Like, if you're gonna have lots of blood, it might as well be sparkly, right? So, I need to get back to this. Yeah, but it's awesome. I'm like moving through this really quickly. Okay, so the next up is like my last whip, but it's okay. So this is like it's a big one. In March, I just got on a whim to like I decided to like work on my chatelaine, which is Poison Garden. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna work on this for the next 2 weeks and see how far I can get. And that turned into I'm gonna work on this throughout the whole month of April and see how far I could get. So here we go. You can't really see the whole thing because it's rolled up and I didn't want to take it off, but yeah, that's what I have so far. Let me see if I can show you kind of this area right here is kind of where it was when I started working on it again. So I've made a lot of progress. You see the shimmer? But this thing is like a beast. And sadly, I think I am running out of steam, but I'm still determined to kind of work on this primarily throughout the rest of the month. Because I really do want to see how far I could get. But the frustrating thing about Shadow Lanes is once you do a section of it, you have to do it like 3 more times as you work your way around. And for anyone who's nervous about doing Shadow Lanes, like when you learn a new like specialty stitch, you'll be a pro by the end of this because you will have to do them so many times. Like look at all of those like rice stitches right there, and it's like it's very kind of, it becomes, you kind of get, I get kind of get in the zone while I'm working on it, but it does become a little tedious because I just want to move on to the next thing. But after this I have like, it was like a string of belladonna around the whole thing, so after that it won't be as repetitive because then I'm in the arches with all the poisonous plants. So I am incredibly excited about this. And yeah, because of quarantine, I just have a lot of free time on my hands to do a lot of stitching. Yeah, so I've been trying to post some frequent updates on that on Instagram. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on for the time being. And I was thinking maybe like May I could maybe work monogamously on like that and see how far I get, but I really do think I should work on smaller projects that I could actually finish. But yeah, but I have finished some things kind of recently that I am super excited about. So after I graduated, I started this one project. It's I got it from My Bobbin, and the designer name, I'm gonna totally butcher it, but her name is Elisa Oknias, and it is Sabrina from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. And for those who haven't seen it, think Sabrina the Teenage Witch on, how do I say this? Much darker and a lot more twisted, and it's very campy and kind of grotesque, but it's a lot of fun. Like it's they just kind of nonchalantly say like a lot of Hail Satan, so if that's not your thing then you might not want to watch it, but I think it's an entertaining show. So I have Salem and Sabrina here, and I finished, like I started this in December and I finished it in January because I was like obsessively working on it, and I am incredibly happy with how she turned out. When I was like backstitching her face, I was so stressed out because if I messed it up, like it's her face, like it's like that's the one area you just do not want to mess up backstitching because it's just so detailed. And then it called for beads kind of for her top, and I just pulled some red beads from my stash, and it worked out very well. And this project only has like 2 blends, like one in her face for like kind of like the blush, and then one on Salem. But I am incredibly happy with how this turned out. It was a lot of fun to stitch, even though it was like a lot of it's just like tons of different shades of red, but it went by pretty quickly. And then the next thing I finished like in March. So I was like I've been looking for something to stitch for my sister for a while now, and I think I found something that she would really like. She's already seen this, so like this wouldn't be, if she ever decides to like watch this video, it wouldn't be like a spoiler to her. But it is, oh, I forgot to mention on the Sabrina one, it's stitched on 28 count Luna from Color and Cotton. I'm finally using all those fabric subscriptions I've been getting. Okay, so this is, the design is from Cute Patterns by Maria, and it's stitched on 32 count linen that I got from a Halloween stitchy box. It's kind of like a lavender, but here's that. Like it stitched up like really quickly, and it was like lots of fun to stitch. Like the before and after like back stitching, like it's always, I love. It's so satisfying to see kind of like what back stitching can do to kind of transform it, and But I think my plan for finishing it is like, I kind of want to make it into a little pillow, but my sister and I are kind of, we're going to kind of do a collaborative thing where we found like an old kind of like shelf, and she's going to paint it, and then we're going to kind of turn it into like a witchy like cabinet thing that she could kind of hang up in her house, and this will be on it. Probably like turn into a little pillow and like put it on one of the shelves there. But we're thinking it might have like, might add some vines and like some witchy vials and other fun stuff. It's gonna be kind of like a collaborative project. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to stitch. And so now we're on to FFOs, which is fully finished objects. And so during all this thing we're going through, I finally decided to break out my sewing machine, which I've never used. I don't know how to use a sewing machine, so this is me kind of learning. And I decided to make a little pillow with something I stitched when I first started stitching. So this is, I got this from like a cross stitch magazine, I don't remember which one, but it was like full of, like it was a page full of like Parisian motifs. But it's like just on regular, probably 14 count Aida. But I turned it into a little pillow. And I still need to practice a lot on how to make pillows, especially like sealing the bottom. It's not pretty, but I tried. So I have to start somewhere, and I have other little projects that I could kind of do to kind of keep practicing. But yeah, so that's my next creative adventure, is learning how to sew. Even though it's like a little messy, I am pretty happy with it. Okay, so I'm moving through this actually a lot faster than I thought it would. Next up is haul. I don't have a whole lot to show. I have accumulated like some stuff like over the past 6 months, but I'm just gonna kind of show the stuff that I did recently. So for my birthday this month, my mom she rated my 1-2-3 stitch wish list, and she got me some of those things from there. So I'm gonna just kind of show some of those. First up is a couple of the blue flower patterns. So I have this one, which is Night Walk Down, and I'm obsessed with this. I think this might be a new start soon. I just need to kit it all up. Then another blue flower. Yeah, this was like a market release, and once I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I need that. Like, I just like love everything about it, like all the different animals, and how like hidden in the alphabet it says one for me, one for the basket. Which is super cute. And I got this one. I've had my eye on this one for a bit, Nantucket Rose from Lavender and Lace. Yes. More massive projects for me to start. So, yeah, and then next up, we're going to talk about books. And I have, I've read quite a bit since my last video, but I'm not going to talk about all the books that I read, because that would just be a lot. Let's reach over here quick. Okay, so, last year, the last book that I read, that I finished was, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And this one took me a long time to read, because I started it, I think, in the summer and then finished it in December. That doesn't mean I didn't love it. Like, I got distracted with other things. It's a very dense book, but like each time I picked it up again, it wasn't hard at all to kind of get back into it. But it's about it takes place at like a college in like, I think, Vermont, like in like kind of the New England area, like an Ivy League college. And the main character, I think Richard, like he wants to join this Greek class, but it's very exclusive. Like it's this one teacher, like it's like only like several students, and they're very tight knit. But he finally does become part of the group, and it's just like this weird kind of group dynamic between everyone. And the book starts out with, like, this isn't a spoiler. You find out from the very beginning that they kill one of their friends, and it's just a matter of like you finding out what goes on that to like cause that to happen, and then the aftermath. And it's just like lately I've been kind of obsessed with like dark academia, and this is like my cup of tea. Like it's the writing is beautiful, and it's like just a really interesting kind of character study of all these people and just like how they interact and like how kind of twisted and messed up it gets. So this one's lots of fun. Okay, so these are books that I read so far this year, and I've actually been kind of struggling in the reading realm for a bit this year, just being distracted. So one of the things I did is I reread all of Lock and Key, which I'm not going to talk in depth about it because I've already done that on this channel. But I realized on Instagram I've kind of been like logging my reading experience of this again leading up to the release of the Netflix series. And then I never talked about my reactions to the Netflix series. So I thought I would do that here a little bit. So Lock and Key, it was made into a Netflix series that came out in February. It was... The day it came out, I binged it all, like, in a day. And I didn't look at the message boards because I didn't want my opinion swayed. I just wanted my own thoughts. I didn't want any spoilers. And I enjoyed it. It was fun. Like, and then afterwards, I went to Reddit to read what people were thinking, and that was a big mistake. So if you like something, that's not a good idea to do. Like, my things with this is I enjoyed it. Like, the main cast I thought was pretty perfect for like the comic books, but there were some things I kind of like scratched my head. I'm like, why are they doing it that way? Like, it's kind of weird. But also a thing that kind of frustrated me the show, like I missed, is that the show leans more into the fantasy elements of the comics, and they make it more family friendly. It's kind of more PG-13. The graphic novels are kind of a mix of like kind of dark fantasy and horror. There's kind of a lot of gore and like vulgar language, and it's just like definitely for more mature readers. And the show doesn't have any gore, so if you're not into that, you might like the show more than the comic. But it's like I missed the kind of like the childlike wonder and like fantasy mixed with that kind of like those adult themes. And they changed some things that I was actually understood where they were coming from for there, and it's probably for the best. But I could just see people who, like, maybe, like, a young family who, like, love the show, go to the graphic novels, and they're in for a surprise. So, yeah. But it was a fun show. Like, I didn't, like, post my thoughts because I didn't enjoy it. Like, I did enjoy it, just, like, and I will watch the second season once that comes out. Like, I am curious what to do with it. And, like, my mindset is, like, Joe Hill and the creators of the comic, they love the show. So it's, like, that's kind of, if they love it, like, that kind of makes me happy, because it's like, I don't know, that's with adaptations, like, if the creators are happy, I'm happy too. But yeah, there's still stuff I missed I wish they had done. Okay, and then okay, the next two are books I read with Julie for our kind of read-alongs, and we've read a few books this year, but I'll probably only like talk about a couple of them. The first one up is God's Grave by J. Kristoff. And this is the sequel to Nevernight. And this, like, I'm trying to explain this without really spoiling the plot of Nevernight and this one. And pretty much the main character, Mia, she goes to this assassin school called the Red Church. And because something happened with her family and she wants revenge. And the second book, like, the first book is all about kind of the Red Church and becoming an assassin. The second book is she ends up selling herself into slavery to become kind of like, there's a certain term for it, but it's pretty much a gladiator. So she becomes a gladiator for this family. So she could, like, it's kind of like a lot of fight to the death. And in doing so, she gets closer to the people that she wants to kill. So it's kind of like that story with that. And like something I absolutely love about the books is there's footnotes, like a lot of footnotes, which could be like a deterrent for some people, but like you could probably read it without like reading it with the footnotes, but like I feel like you miss like a lot of key information because like it gives you a lot of the history of this location, and like because it's like in a like kind of like a fictional like ancient Rome, so you got a lot about how like the society works. Also, the narrator is incredibly snarky, and that comes through in the footnotes. Like he'll like the narrator will kind of make a joke in the main body, and then he'll go down and he's like, "You laughed, admit it," like or something like that. Like he's just very snarky and it's entertaining. But so I enjoyed this, but I think I enjoyed Nevernight, the first one, a lot more because it had kind of like that boarding school vibe where it's like kind of unlike any other boarding school because you could actually die there. But hey, like, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And the third book is called Dark Dawn, which I am really excited to read. Then next up is called Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater, and this one is like Julie and I had been doing a reread of all the Raven Cycle books, and this is a spin-off. This is gonna be a spin-off trilogy focusing on one of the characters from the Raven Cycle, Ronan Lynch, and pretty much his deal is that he could take things out of dreams, and now is a good time for me to blank out on everything that happens in this book, but it's like there's like prophecies kind of about the world ending and kind of how he comes into play with that, and there's like chaos and kind of him dealing with his abilities, and he meets other people that can take things out of their dreams, but it's like different consequences for them. But like one thing is like I do miss like the original characters from the Raven Cycle. They kind of make an appearance, but they're not as prominent. But one thing I liked about this is it focuses on Ronan's brothers, like Matthew and Declan, who like they don't have big parts in the Raven Cycle, but you kind of grow to appreciate them more in this book, which is a lot of fun. And then the last book I'm going to talk about, let's see. I don't have it with me right now because it's not out yet. I read a perk kind of about being a bookseller is I get access to Edelweiss, which is like a platform for like librarians, booksellers, like probably and bloggers, like book bloggers. They could get access to advanced reader copies, so they could kind of read them, review, recommend them to people. So my favorite author, Victoria Schwab, she has a book coming out in October called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and this book is was like my most anticipated read of 2020, because I always like watch interviews of her talking about it and just sound like the book, like the absolute perfect book for me. Like I was just so excited about it, and then the moment it was available to like have an advanced reader copy, I just dropped everything and I'm like, I'm gonna focus on this book right now, and it's I finished it in like a few days, but the plot of the book is I'm gonna do this without spoiling anything. Like pretty much how Victoria Schwab kind of explains it is that this girl in the 1700s in France, she sells her soul to the devil in exchange for immortality. Now, when you sell your soul to the devil, they want to collect their dues eventually. So she's immortal; she's not going to die. Like he won't be able to get her soul. So they made a deal that she will give him he could have her soul once she does not want it anymore. They agreed to the deal. However, the devil is a sneaky little guy, and he makes it so everyone she meets will forget her. Like everyone, like say like she's at a restaurant and a waiter takes her order. The moment he walks away, he will forget everything. So it's like, she won't really, like she can't really carry out daily interactions like that because it just does not work. But then 300 years later in New York City, she meets, this isn't a spoiler, this is like kind of like in the main synopsis. 300 years later, she meets a guy who like remembers her from like a previous encounter. So it's kind of like finding out why that is, and kind of the story covers like 300 years. Like you guys see like all these different places that she went, and kind of the impact that this deal had on her life and her like relationship, so to speak, with the devil, and kind of what transpires there. But just like then the really like who this person is who suddenly remembers her and that impact that she has from then on. But it's so good. Like it's like everything I could possibly wanted. It like is like it's very emotional and like beautifully written, but it's like deals with time and like oh, it's so good. So that comes out in October. I highly recommend it. It's so good. So that's like one of my top recommendations right now. Like I'll definitely be buying a physical copy once it comes out. I'm so excited about it. And so yeah, that's all I have right now. I hope to like do more videos like this next year, because I only did 4 this past year, so like I don't know how regular I will be with it. Like I don't see myself doing it once a week, but like I do want to post more frequently, so I can definitely get more comfortable doing this. And I do want to thank everyone again for all the wonderful comments. It really means the world to me, and it's like this definitely is a comfortable environment where I feel welcome, and I hope it's just like it's a great community. So I'm glad to be a part of it. And I really hope that during all this quarantine and all this crazy stuff that everyone is doing well, and like just yeah, I hope everyone's well and safe, and wash your hands. So I will see you next time.